This old-fashioned football episode featuring Bryan Nolt of Breckenridge Distillery on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Game Time, your home for the lowest price last-minute tickets. Download the Game Time app today and use promo code SGPN for $20 off. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play Underdog's Pick'em for a chance to win 100 times your money. Promo code OFFSGPN at UnderdogFantasy.com for a 100% deposit match. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today.
Hey, what's up? This is Sam Acho, and you're listening to Old Fashioned Football.
Old-fashioned football.
You make this deal right now, you pancake eating mother.
All right, deal.
Old-fashioned football.
Welcome to Old Fashioned Football. If you're wondering who you're listening to, this is J Mark. You can find me on the X at J Mark Football. And if you're wondering who us is, that's at Old Fashioned FB. Before I keep going, I got to bring in my co-host on the pod and in life. You can find her on the X at the Mark. How you doing today?
Doing great, Justin.
So a couple weeks ago, we recorded an episode with the founder of Breckenridge Distillery and current CEO as well, Bryan Nolt.
Yes.
And it was amazing.
It was such a good time. I've been really excited. This is the first interview that we have done with a future release date.
Yes.
So,
and we as soon as we did it, we wanted to release it right away.
But we've had such a booked schedule.
Yeah, scheduling just didn't work out. So, but the anticipation has been great. I know we've talked to a lot of you about it. We've posted it on the socials. People have been getting amped, and the day is finally here.
It is.
It's Whiskey Wednesday.
Whiskey Wednesday. Gotta love that.
Yeah, grab yourself a drink, even if it's water. You don't have to drink whiskey. We're all for responsible choices and safe choices for sure. Let's just jump right into this.
Let's bring in our interview with Bryan Nolt.
All right. Hope you all enjoy. All right, everybody. Our guest this week is the person who started it all at Breckenridge Distillery, but not just the founder, a doctor as well. We're going to get into that. Please welcome Bryan Nolt. Bryan, how you doing today?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you on our show with us.
Absolutely. Welcome to
Was ready to talk booze and sports.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so let's just start there. I mean, we talk a lot of football. Breckenridge Distillery has a partnership with the Broncos. I assume you're a Broncos fan?
I am, but it's complicated because I'm from Kansas City. So I have two favorite teams.
Sure.
One of them I'm gonna go watch play this weekend.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna guess we don't have to ask who you're rooting for in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, definitely not the Niners this time.
Yeah. So let's just talk Broncos briefly. What were your thoughts on their year? I mean, it was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
And,
yeah,
go ahead.
That's for sure. Well, I mean, I think they kind of finished where we all thought they would. You know, they were going to be around 500. We all kind of thought, you know, that's a big improvement over last year. But we didn't expect them to lose, you know, lose all their winnable games early in the season and then come back and, you know, knock off, you know, KC and I mean, it was just, you know, I mean, it was weird. They took the long way to get there. The hard path, I think, to get to even. And you know, it's tough with salary cap for them because you know their big move, franchise quarterback, it didn't work out the way they hoped, and so now you've got all that dead cap space hanging overhead. And, you know, and the Broncos organization is just, I mean, they're just incredible people in the organization, and the team is, I mean, it's a fantastic team, you know, and Colorado really, really gets behind the Broncos. I mean, it's one of those great football towns. It really is. And so, being a Broncos fan is a lot of fun. Usually it's just, we're in a rut since Peyton retired, but and I think it's going to take a few more years to get, to really get back to doing awesome things. But the ownership, they're in it to win it for sure. I mean, they're going to do whatever they can do. So I'm optimistic long term for the Broncos.
Oh, we're Bears fans, so we understand. Yeah.
I was at that game too, and first off, sorry, but but
It's rough.
secondly, I just I was there, and when I wasn't like drinking a beer, I was kind of thirsty, and I have to say that was like the first time I've had RC Cola in a long time. That's all there is at Bear Stadium, man. It's RC Cola everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I haven't had this like since 1980 or something like that.
Kind of out of date, like the rest of the Bears organization seems to be.
Do you go to a lot of football games?
Yeah, I do. I try to go to every Broncos home game,
Awesome.
and I make it to most of them.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Exciting. I have so we're located in Iowa, but I work with a lot of people who are in the Denver area. I've been out to Denver multiple times for work, and the Broncos fans out there, they're very optimistic, and they bring a lot of just.
Look, the sun comes up, and for the next season, we're currently undefeated, right? So
there you go.
Yeah. This is true. So it's okay if the answer is no, but we have to ask, since we're fantasy football and whiskey, so we talk a lot of fantasy football too. So I have to ask you, do you play any fantasy football? Are you in any fantasy leagues?
Well, I don't like to brag, but I got banned from my fantasy league because I won too many years in a row. And so after that, I mean, I didn't get banned. They politely asked me to leave.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah.
How many years in a row did you win?
I won like 5 years in a row.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So I haven't played in a good couple of years. And it's like I'm gonna like be in it to win it, so it takes some time. If you and I don't, it's probably best that I don't commit that much time to fantasy football anymore. But I live vicariously through everybody else, and I really appreciate the leagues where whoever finishes last has to do X, whatever they determine X is for the year. I wasn't in this league, but I heard of one league where the loser had to put on a full Dracula costume and mow the winner's lawn like every 10 days for the whole like summer.
That's
like
awesome.
That kind of stuff. I'm into that for sure. But
that is exciting.
That is good. We had somebody within our organization did an article this year of like the top 10 fantasy football punishments. Yes. I'm going to have to bring that one up to him because that sounds pretty good. And that was not in his article. So I'm going to have to bring that up.
And I mean, tattoos are overdone and
but I like that. I really like that one.
So how did the Broncos thing come about? Like, did you guys reach out to them? Did they approach you? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, you bet. So up until 3 or 4 years ago, NFL didn't allow spirits partnerships. So, spirits were always like the illegitimate stepchild of everything. Like the rules are always stacked against us. The taxes are always higher. You're always banned for, you can't do anything, so eventually things loosen up. And it was, I guess it was like the COVID year or right at the start of COVID. I can't remember, but the NFL was finally going to allow spirits and spirits partnerships. And they actually reached out to us, which was really cool because, they were like, hey, we want to do pure Colorado, and you're what we think of when we think about Colorado and spirits. And so are you interested? And, we hadn't really done a large sponsorship like that before. We had a bar at what was previously Pepsi Center, which is now Ball Arena. So where the Avs and Nuggets play. And it was a big investment and a big move for us at the time, but it was worth it, and it's been a really good partnership.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we'll get right back to Bryan in just a second, but first I got to let you know that we're brought to you by Game Time. Listen, sometimes trying to plan to go to events or sporting events, concerts, whatever it is, it's stressful. It doesn't have to be, because you have Game Time, your last minute ticket app that is just so good. It's the best place to go for flash deals, last minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your arena. Plus, one of the things I love, you get images of your seat views and the lowest price guarantee. They have event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all this sort of stuff. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event, and now it can be yours. It just sends right to your phone. You don't have to dig through emails trying to find the email that has your tickets. You just buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps, you're set on your phone. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite fantasy players all season long. NBA, NHL, and college basketball. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite players' fantasy stats and cash in. Plus, you can win up to 100 times your money with some spicy plays. Also, it's draft season. It's not too early to go do your best ball drafts. Go on over there and get your best ball drafts on Underdog Fantasy, because I guarantee you it is the best place to do best ball drafts. Watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with the promo code OFFSGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code OFFSGPN. I guess backing up just a little bit, I read a little bit about kind of the start of the distillery, and it read something about you had recently been to Scotland. You were fly fishing in the Rocky Mountains, which obviously I need to spend some more time fly fishing. So these ideas come to me.
Yeah.
And you thought about opening a distillery. Can you walk us a little bit through that and like kind of the transition from you're a doctor as well? We talked about of doctor and whiskey and distilling, and just kind of how it all molded together.
Yeah, it's an unusual story and pathway for sure. And, one thing I'll say about doctors is doctors are typically the worst business people on the planet. So so it's really unnatural to find, I don't know. For someone in medicine to do something else and other than open like a Medi Spa or something like that, or you prescribe Wegovy to people, and make some money. But no, so I have to go back. So I moved to Colorado in 2003 and got in private practice then. I'm in my 50s. So when I trained in medicine, it was a little different than modern day or current day training. It was just relentless. And so for about almost 10 years before I moved out to Colorado, I was working 115 hours a week, like nonstop. Wow. And when you're an intern and a resident, you work, at least we used to work like 364 or 365 days a year. I mean, it was just brutal. And I bring it up because when you're working that much for that long, you get weird hobbies. Yeah, so you don't have any, you can't go anywhere, you don't have days off, you have no time to really do anything. I mean, you might get a half a day off or you might get an evening off. And so for me, of the things that I enjoyed, whiskey was really the only one I could make time for. And so I became a crazy whiskey nerd. And I loved and still love Scotch in particular. So, and malt whiskey, so, Then I get into private practice, and now I can really start collecting whiskey because I have some disposable income. I've got enough money to be dangerous, and now I'm only working 80 hours a week. And so this sort of passion for whiskey just, kind of got boosted up on steroids, and I became a whiskey collector. I would go to Scotland whenever I could and arrange meetings with independent bottlers and blenders to taste through their inventories and stuff like that. And if you look at the history of whiskey, it's been boom and bust. And the last big bust in Scotch was like in the 80s, and something like half of the Scotch distilleries closed. And there's a long tradition of these independent blenders and bottlers who make, they would buy barrels from the distillers, and then they would make their own labels. And, they bought out all the inventory when all these distilleries went belly up. And pennies on the pound kind of deal. So, I became this crazy whiskey collector. I would go over there, and I think one time I came home with the nicest bottle I had. It was over $20,000. Like, that's how passionate of a whiskey collector I was. And I had a whiskey club. And if you wanted to join my club, all you had to do was, show up with a bottle that you didn't get at the liquor store on your way over. Like, you at least had to put like some thought into it. And, preferably you found something good. But, I had this crazy whiskey collection, and we would just crush it. We would drink it. I'm not a hoarder. It's amazing how much whiskey I don't even remember anymore, because we drank it all like a long time ago. But so that's where the passion came from, and I never thought much about it. One fateful day, I'd gotten back from Scotland, and I had like a Sunday off, and I arranged to fly fish with a buddy of mine. Let fly fishing. He's in Dock in Vale, which is one mountain town over.
Sure.
And we had this epic day of fishing. Mohawk Lakes is just below the Continental Divide, just that way from my house. So we're fishing, and the whole day he was complaining about medicine and how bad it sucked, and how ungrateful the world was, blah blah blah. And I had just gotten back, and I was on cloud nine, and I was like, oh dude, well, I drank whiskey here, and I smuggled 3 bottles of this in, and I watched these guys make barrels for 3 hours, and I ate shortbread cookies with the distiller at Balvenie, and and just we're standing in the water the whole day, and the water in Breckenridge is like incredible. It's some of the best tasting water you'll ever find. And I was wrapping up this day of fishing, and we're hiking down the trail, and I was just like, holy shit, the light went off, and I'm walking down, and I'm having pleasant thoughts, and then I'm listening to my buddy, and I'm like, well, he's kind of right. I'm just going to work myself to death, and then one day, after I die, my kids will get my pension, and that's going to be my, my life story. And I'm like, but gosh, I really love whiskey, and I wonder, could you just put a little distillery up here, in this mountain town, and turn this incredible water into the kind of whiskey that I would like to drink? And that was 2007. And, so it was kind of a crazy, idea that was kind of out there. And, but I really like whiskey. So I kind of looked into it a little more. And now, instead of reading books about like, I like fun and entertaining books about whiskey, I started reading books about how to make whiskey. And then I went and took really the only decent distillation course you could take in the U.S. at that time. It was out in Petaluma by the ADI, and took the distillation course. And with the science background, I'm like, okay, I can figure this out, and I definitely had the palate for whiskey and knew what I liked. So it just kind of started there, and it took me about a year, and I was going. I during that year, I'm like, okay, I think I can cash flow this, which is all I wanted to do. I just wanted to do this little distillery, sell bottles out the door, which you're allowed to do in Colorado, and not go broke. And my wife let me do it. So that was like the biggest obstacle, honestly, was to get her permission. Sure. And we're still married somehow, so everything worked out. But that's how it started, and so we started making whiskey 2008 and then opened to the public in 2011. And, we started just making malt whiskey because that's what I love. But I also really like rye whiskey. And my distiller at the time, guy brought in a really talented distiller named Jordan Vai, talked me into doing bourbon. He's like, let's make bourbon. And I'm like, I'd rather just make, malt whiskey. He's like, but you love rye. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, let's make high rye bourbon. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And at that time, nobody even really knew what a distillery was, at least most people, in America. And when I put up the money and got going, and then I brought in some friends and family. And when I was telling them what I was doing, they were like, okay, so you're going to open a brewery. And I'm like, no, that's not what I said. It's a distillery. They're like, okay, so you're making beer. And I'm like, okay, well, technically you make beer and then you turn it
and then, yes.
So you're part right. But, back then, people didn't know what a distillery was. It wasn't the cool thing to do. And, so we did the bourbon, and, we started putting the bourbon in the really challenging competitions like International Wine and Spirits. They give out 3 gold medals a year. That's it. It's not like everyone gets a participation trophy. And I think it was the first year we went in, I think it was 2011, we got one of the 3 golds, for bourbon. Wow. And so that put us on the map, and people started paying attention and kind of seeking us out. And from there it metamorphosized, from just being my little salvation to being a real business that I had to manage and decide if I really wanted to, how serious was I about this business, right? And how committed and how much risk did I want to take? But, it all made sense to me, and I saw a lot of upside. So, so I kind of went for it, and fortunately it paid off. There's,
yes,
I don't know how many DSPs there are in the US right now, but, there's thousands, 2,000 or 3,000, and, the majority don't do a lot of business. And it's really hard to get distribution. That whole system is so challenging to break into. And, you're not competing against your peers in the craft distilling space. You're competing against Beam Suntory, Diageo, Pernod Ricard, and they have so much dry powder. They have, incredible infrastructure, years and years and years, decades of experience. They know how to do it. They're all super talented. And so, I think I would probably have about as good of a chance as being the starting quarterback for the Broncos next year as I did to end up where we ended up. It was, I mean, granted, it was a great idea and it was a ton of hard work and all those things, but there's just a lot of just serendipity and divine intervention, and some things are just meant to be, and that's my only explanation for how it worked.
Very cool.
So when you're making that decision from you're gonna leave your practice and start this up, what were some of the most challenging things to get that started?
I never left my practice. So that was the one thing is I was working full time in medicine still and doing the distillery. And, in the early years, we had 1 or 2 employees. And as we started doing distribution and stuff like that, I would go to all these markets and launch, have the GSMs, the sales meetings with the wholesalers, be out of town for 2 or 3 days. And, just go to every single account that they could get me into, and, and try to get our product in front of people, and, did it 1 bottle at a time. But the hardest, it's like some of the hardest things never change. And I still feel like, the hardest thing is still honestly HR. I mean, we have like 135 employees now, so we're pretty good size. But even when we were small, it's the HR issues that, that are brutal. The other things, things that people will, probably better identify with is capital intensive. And you know, most people when they get into a distillery, particularly if you're doing whiskey, really underestimate that. So I mean, you've got to lay down all this whiskey, and it costs a ton of money to do that, and then you tie this inventory up, you know, for at least 4 or 5 years, you know. And it's like our malt whiskeys, you know, nowadays we don't release them until they're like 10 or 12 years old, and so you know that capital has been tied up for a decade.
Yes.
And people just run out of dry powder, and I think, you know, that's a huge challenge. Again, the system, you know, the 3-tier system and how distribution works is, I mean, it's just brutal. If you're a supplier, if you're a manufacturer, just breaking through and getting a distributor to not just help you, but, you know, to get out of their own way. You know, I mean, I just, you know, for so many years, you know, you or your salespeople, you know, you get something sold in, and then the distributor like wouldn't even bother to drop it off. And so you lose the account that you just, you know, put blood, sweat, and tears into. And so when you're little, I mean, it's all just human nature, right? And you know, I'm not saying distributors are bad, because they're not. Our distributor's great. But when you're little, man, it's tough. And so you have to figure out, it really comes down to getting yourself a stick and beating the distributor with it. And if you have a little tiny stick, you know, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to parlay little things into bigger things and keep getting your stick bigger, you know, to start beating the distributor with. Yeah, I mean, I think those are challenges. And then, you know, transitioning from being a mom and pop operation to running more like a publicly traded company and having good discipline and metrics and things like that. You know, that's super hard to master. And, you know, I think if you're going to do it, you just have to be so committed that there's nothing that you're not willing to do legally, you know? And, so for me, it was just a lot of not sleeping for a long time.
All right, we got to interrupt Bryan one more time. I promise this is the last time. But Miranda, why don't you tell people where they can get some betting advice or bet a little bit smarter?
Absolutely. You can do that over on Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NBA season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NBA and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value.
Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. Now back to Bryan Nolt of Breckenridge Distillery.
One thing I thought of that's kind of neat to talk about that's sort of unique to us is, you know, I sold the company to Tilray a little over 2 years ago. And, you know, when we got going, that people recognized that we had a good thing that might have potential. And I know this because they all tried to buy me, you know, and the number of companies that wanted to buy us, even early on, was extensive. And I was never interested in selling the company. And then what starts to happen, or at least what started to happen to me, was I had a unique set of challenges because of my investor group. So it was, like I said, it was friends and family, and some of the people that were my early investors. I worked there like in my medical practice. And so, you know, these guys were, you know, it was no huge deal to them. It was just kind of a cool thing to do. And, you know, they didn't take it all, you know, overly seriously. And then I had some guys, you know, that I still to this day are great friends and I love to death, that didn't have a lot of money, but really wanted in. And so they put in as much as they could. And granted, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it was a small amount, but to them it was a large amount.
Yeah.
And as the business starts growing and you need to raise capital, which is going to happen in any business, normally what you would do is you would do a capital call and you would say, hey guys, we need $1 million or $500,000. So your percent is what you have to pony up in cash.
Yeah.
And I had, these guys that didn't have any money. So typically what would happen is everyone else would put in the cash and then they would get diluted. I mean, that's sort of the standard model for how this would work.
Yeah.
I didn't have the heart to dilute these guys. So I kept just killing myself by making loans to the company at 0% so that we didn't have to cap call. Going and getting a loan, which, no bank would lend on the business. So I had to personally guarantee it. So if the shit hit the fan or, some class action attorney lands some weird ass haymaker on you, and you go bankrupt, it's just me. Right. So I PG'd it all. I didn't even think twice about it. And then as the company kept going and going and going and getting bigger, some of these distilleries started to sell. High West sold and Angel's Envy sold and even, Saint Germain sold. And these guys, they're paying attention and they're like, hey, what's the distillery worth today? What's the distillery worth today? And I'm like, stop, but they're like, well, High West sold for $175 million. And, we're not, doing much less than them. And so people start spending the money and their wives start spending the money. That they don't have. And honestly, that's what changed my mind about it, which I've never heard anyone, say that before on starting a business and selling it.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's why I did it, was because I didn't want to let them down, and I knew valuations were peaking. So, it was a good time to look. And I honestly, I didn't look, but I listened. So when people came with offers, I would talk to them. So, and that's how it went down.
Nice.
I want to backtrack a little because your story from how you decided to just go for it when you're out there fishing and the water. I wanted to ask about the water. So how do you feel that mountain water changes the whiskey and makes your whiskey different than other whiskeys out there? Because nobody else has that specific Colorado mountain water, the Breckenridge water.
Yeah, it's massive. And, it's talking about water, I think for most people would be a marketing gimmick. But I can tell you when you talk about, bourbon in Kentucky, the water makes it excellent, because the water is really hard. It doesn't have sulfur. It doesn't have iron. And, I think a lot of those whiskeys wouldn't be nearly as good if they were made almost anywhere else, because most places don't have the magic water. The water up here is really actually similar to that water, except it's even harder. And that's a good thing because as long as you have the right minerals in there, if you think about it, minerals are salts and salts are flavor enhancers. And so good water makes everything taste better. And it also gives you great mouthfeel. And that's a signature piece of any product we put out is the mouthfeel has to be perfect. And then it's got to transition into a great finish. If it doesn't, then we're not going to release it. But it's an incredibly unfair advantage. And, I knew the water was great, but I didn't realize just how great it was until I started working on vodka. So, if you think about vodka, it's 80 proof. So it's 40% ethanol and there's no congeners in it. So there's nothing else in it except for ethanol and water. Right. So 60% of your bottle is water. So that's the majority of what's in. So your water is super important. Okay. So we started with a plan to start selling some vodka early on because it generates revenue. And so the guy I was working with on our mash bills, and this is before we had our still going or anything, we were trying to figure out everything. And so they were making vodka for me, and they helped me find neutral grain spirit, which is made, on industrial stills all over the place. And so, I just started trying all these different vodkas. I'm trying to learn and get a game plan together. And so if you get neutral grain spirit, it's 192 proof, and then you proof it down to 80. So I started tinkering around and trying to figure out what we're going to do, and proofing things down with different water. So I really focused on water. So I got water from all over the state, tried it, Denver water, Springs water, Pueblo water, Western Slope water, Breckenridge water, Vale water, water that's run through a Brita, water that was, deionized, distilled water, bottled water. So, I started doing, really controlled experiments where you try all this different water. And I was just blown away by how incredible, if you took the tap water from Breckenridge, ran it through a Brita, which basically just took the chlorine out. It was astounding how much better it was than any other way I did it. And then once I sort of figured out a game plan for how we were going to make, what kind of distillate we were going to use on vodka, then I, would bring friends over, 5, 10, 15, and blind taste them. And every single time it was unanimous. It was always the one with the Breckenridge water. So I realized holy shit, I've really stumbled onto something here. And, yeah. And I mean, what happens is if you don't have great water, you can still use it. It's just, you have to strip it completely down. Right. And then you have to build it back up. And so you have to add minerals to it. If you can't get mouthfeel, people add glycerin and things like that. And I'm not knocking that because you do what you got to do. But it's just a hell of a lot easier if you can just, take it off the tap and remove the chlorine. And so it's an incredible unfair advantage, particularly on the proofing side. So from the, mashing and distillation, obviously it's super important, but proofing, when 60% is just the water, big deal.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
Another thing, so aside from the water, you guys are also the highest distillery in terms of elevation in the world. Is that correct? Did I have that right?
I mean, there's different translations or meanings to the word highest. So at the time, Colorado or Breckenridge, was decriminalizing marijuana. And so it was just kind of funny that it was kind of a play on words, but we are at 9,600 feet.
Yeah.
And,
so the tallest in height.
In terms of elevation, it's, it's hard to keep up. I assume we are, but I don't know. There might be one somewhere. And there's been little ones that have popped up, even in Colorado. There was one in Leadville, which is a little higher than here. It didn't make it, unfortunately, but you never know. And I'm definitely not going to spend time and energy seeing if there's someone in Peru.
Right.
But I don't, it's like we're the tallest or damn near the tallest, but we're definitely the highest.
So how do you think that elevation affects how does that affect the distilling process or even your aging process? Does it have an impact? Yeah,
definitely. So again, I figured out our mash bills and how we were going to make whiskey and vodka and everything else at sea level in California. And so when we fired up the still here the first time, so we started with this 500-gallon pot still, and so we kick it on, and we know that the heads are going to start coming over, and 20 minutes, and but they're coming over like immediately, and we're like, something's wrong, like what's going on? Well, let's that's methanol, and okay, well, let's see what happens. So the boiling point is lower here, right? So there's less. You're up high, so there's less atmosphere pushing down. So the atmospheric pressure is less, and so that makes it easier for liquid to turn into to gas, right? So it
Mhm.
makes it easier for the liquid to get up and escape to gas. So as you heat it at a lower temperature, everything starts coming over, right? And that's why the boiling points are different. And so, if you're cooking or boiling water or whatever, everything's different up here. But it's really astounding what effect that has during distillation. The other thing that's kind of unique is you heat it up and you turn the liquid into the gas, and the gas goes up, and then it goes over to the condenser. And so the gas is flowing, and then the condenser has a worm tube in it with cold water running through, and that cools it off. And so it turns back into liquid and it falls down and you collect it, right? The water here is so cold that it's nice because you run the water at a low rate. That was the other thing that was kind of weird. So we had the water, the condenser water cranked, and like we did in California, and everything's going fine, and we just keep titrating it down, and then you get it to like where you're running it at like 5% of what you're used to, because the water is so cold that you just need to use less of it. So that was another advantage that we didn't think of. And then but it's not all good, right? So this is a tough place. Breckenridge, I mean, we're 9,600, 10,000 feet. It's really dry here. We get 350 inches of snow a year. Everything's got to go through the I-70 corridor. So you can imagine that logistically things can get difficult. You can't like store stuff outside because it'll just get destroyed. And I mean, we have bears at the distillery, so it's like, everything there is more challenging. The dryness though, when you're aging, you will get like, the angel share is not 10% up here if you don't do some humidity control. It's much more than that. So you've got to be real careful. You've got to be real careful with your barrels. And barrels do seem to age a little quicker up here, though, I've noticed. And I think, I don't know, but theoretically it's because the pressure system, high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, low pressure. Yeah. It's forcing in and out, and I think that maybe helps a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. One of the things that stands out at the distillery, now we haven't been there personally. We need to make it there. You haven't been to Breckenridge. I was when I was a child, so I need to go as an adult sometime. But one of the things that when I was seeing photos and everything that stands out from the barrels to some of the bottles and kind of all over the distillery is art. There's a lot of artisticness. Can you talk about like what went behind deciding that you wanted to have a kind of a focus on art?
I never really thought about it. I just did it because I love art and I love design and I love flavor, and like to me that's all the same. And I'm a super sniffer, super taster. So and I didn't realize it, and I think until I was a doctor, I just thought everyone could smell and taste like I did. But if you're a super sniffer, being in medicine is like extra challenging because you smell everything, right? And there are a lot of unpleasant smells in medicine. But I've always like really appreciated smell and taste. And so I don't know, those senses get activated and you get pleasure from them. And so for me, like the visual arts, music, all of it, it's always just been huge to me. And so I just I collect art, and I play music and love music and everything else. So it just went naturally. It just made sense to me. And I honestly, I didn't even think about it until one day I was like, oh, okay, I should actually kind of tidy this up a little bit and make it make the art presentable.
Sure. Very cool.
And the art partnerships too. It's we do a collector's art series, a special release each year. We partner. Up until now, it's been mostly local artists, and we mostly do graffiti artists because I love graffiti. So we'll work with an artist, and they'll design a label for us, and then they'll replicate the label either on a barrel wall or a wall somewhere, or as part of an art project. And we just collaborate. And
That's
we
really
do that every
cool.
year. So this will be our 4th year coming up of doing that. So I
Very
love
cool.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So you guys have a huge selection of offerings. I mean, you have whiskeys, different whiskeys and different finishes. But by the way, the bottle of Dark Arts, I think it was, looks amazing.
Yep.
You have vodka, gin, rum, and there's even some alcoholic sparkling waters or seltzers. What's your personal favorite? Is it still the single malt? Have you switched to kind of the high rye or?
Yeah, my favorite thing to drink right now is a product that we're almost sold out of. It's called Two Clans, and it is so. To talk about Two Clans, you have to talk about Dark Arts. So, Dark Arts is what I really wanted to make. It's our malt whiskey. It's American single malt, and it's a kind of a cult whiskey. It's when we release it, it's 10 to 12 years old. It comes in a beautiful decanter in a box. It's $375 a bottle. It's always sold out and allocated, and it's this massive whiskey. There's a dragon on the label so that you know what's coming at you, right? It's all these specialty malts. The malts are pushed so far that they don't want to yield a lot of ethanol, so it's super difficult and expensive to make. But the Dark Arts I call it a Ferrari monster truck, is what it is. And but Dark Arts is like, you want one glass of it, right? It's like it's like mezcal. It's not smoky like mezcal, but it's like mezcal, like one mezcal and you're good.
Sure.
I wanted to do halos around that and offshoots, sort of anticipating that Americans were gonna start drinking Scotch more, and it's slowly coming to fruition. But the Two Clans is Dark Arts blended actually with Scotch, and so it took me about a decade to find the right Scotches to all put together that married with Dark Arts to get what I wanted. And it makes, if you like Scotch, it is a product that you would expect, right? The Dark Arts is more like, it's crazy, right? So it's not, if you're thinking Scotch, that's not what you're going to get on the Dark Arts. I mean, it's there, but it's massive. So the Two Clans is, man, it's perfectly balanced. And that's my favorite thing to drink. I could sell it for $300 a bottle probably, but we sell it for $80. And the reason is because I just want people to be able to try it and love it. And it's like it's our number 2 selling product right now. And we only sell it out of the distillery, and but it's limited time and it's almost gone. And I almost cried yesterday when I saw how much, the little bit of inventory that we had left, because I'm going to miss that one. The good news is though, we're replacing it with some additional products that will be very similar, but I wanted to do more. So the Two Clans is one and done. So we'll have one that's a little more malty, one that's a little more scotchy, one that's a little more smoky, one that's a little more peaty. And, so we're going to basically turn one product into 3 or 4 different ones. But cool. It's I'm going to miss that one.
And you can only get it at the distillery?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, we literally have weeks of inventory left until it's gone.
Guess we better plan a trip quickly.
Next week we're coming out there to get it.
We could probably smuggle a bottle for you.
What is your number 1 selling? You said that's your number 2. What's your number 1 selling?
Yeah, so that's the number 2 seller at the distillery. Number 1 everywhere is just our 86 proof bourbon. And it's $42 a bottle. It's 96 points, right? Pappy 23 got 95. Okay. So, I mean, this is an incredible bourbon for the price, and it's bourbon the way I like to drink bourbon. So I don't like sweet bourbon, and I don't get super excited about wheated bourbons. I like bigger bourbons. So, ours is high rye. So it's up to 38% rye in the mash bill, and I like rye whiskey. So it's a great bourbon with a great mouthfeel and a great long finish, and the wood character is mature, and no angular young oak, nothing forced. We don't do any shortcuts. It's always 53-gallon barrels. We don't put them in a hot tin shed or use a little barrel or add wood adjunct or things like that, right? So it's done right. And for the price, I mean, I don't think you can touch it.
Very cool.
We ask everybody on our show this, so we're gonna put you on the spot here. What is your favorite non-Breckenridge whiskey?
Well, I mean, that's easy for me because it's Scotch.
Scotch.
So, yeah. And my favorite Scotches are ones that I've found that you can't get anymore. Right. So that's like totally cheating on the question. But, these crazy, 35, 40-year-old ex-sherry hoghead, Scotch whiskeys that I have. But for Scotches that you can buy, I really love the Highland Park series. And Highland Park 18 and up are some of my favorites, to drink. And then on American whiskeys, if I'm drinking American whiskey and it's not mine, I'm drinking Rittenhouse Rye.
All right.
That's my style of rye. I love that one. And it's not expensive. And, but I also love, of course, you can't love Scotch and not love Japanese whiskey. But the problem is you can't get any of the good Japanese whiskeys right now. They're just, people found out about them and, and now they're all gone. And, like in this industry, you make friends with everybody. And, I'm friends with Greg Hughes. He's the CEO of Beam Suntory. And if we get together and drink, we can't even get a good Japanese whiskey to drink because he can't even get them. Like that's how, I mean, it's clamped down. So anything you get, is mediocre Japanese whiskey right now. And unfortunately, because I'm not a hoarder, I like all my good Japanese whiskey has been drunk. And I'm just waiting till it comes back. So, and it'll be back. I mean, it'll be $3,000 a bottle, but it'll be back.
And I have to ask you, because I was just curious, do you still have any of that $20,000 bottle left? Is it gone?
No. Some of those like really expensive bottles I have, I kept them empty just as a reminder. But so I think like palate training is so important. So, we have a big distillation team, and we've always like tried to develop the talent. And, distillation is easy to teach, but, blending, nosing, tasting, that's a lot harder to teach.
Yeah.
So we've spent a lot of time and energy in making sure that our staff are well trained. And I haven't done a tasting with our distillation team it's almost been a year, which is nice because normally our cruise has been here a while, but normally we've got more people coming in and we want to keep training palates. And, I can't like do a whiskey tasting with you without giving you like all the good shit. Right. So, I mean, so all those bottles, like I've drank them with my distillation team. So, and they're wiped out. So, I do have amazing bottles of whiskey still, but none of those original ones left.
That's funny. While we have you, do you mind walking us through some tasting? You guys were kind enough to send us some awesome bottles here, and we've been excited to open them, but we always wait. Always wait.
Right.
What would you like to start with? Just the bourbon?
Yeah. What all do you have? I see you've got an orange Broncos blend. You've got 86 proof.
We got the high proof and then the PX sherry.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we should start with probably just start with the 86 proof. Oh, this is totally unfair to you guys because this bottle is probably from about, I'm going to say 2012 or 2013. So what I have on this one is going to be a little different than yours because we slowly started transitioning just, a little bit the profile over the years. You don't want to move quickly. You want to move slowly. And one nice thing about our situation is being a destination distillery. The number of people that come through our 2 tasting rooms and our restaurant and bar is, about 500,000 people a year. So we get to really, we live a focus group. And so as you listen to people and see where their palates are and what clicks for them, I always try to tailor it to what people want. So
that's cool.
So what I have here is a little different than yours, but so the thing you'll notice, off of this whiskey on the nose is, and I'm apologizing because I do this, and I know I'm breaking all the rules, and I don't want to teach people my bad habits. This isn't wine. You're not supposed to swirl it, but I have to because
I always end up swirling.
We're not hoity-toity here. So
I just don't want to teach people the wrong way, and so you're supposed to bring it at your chest and rock it, smell it, then bring it up, and then do the drive-by, and then you can stick your nose in it, but don't swirl. And we swirl because we taste every single barrel of whiskey we have, and we blend 20 to 40 barrels at a time almost every day, and we have to taste them because there's a certain amount of each little slight difference in flavor profile you want to have in combination to have a consistent blend, because we're not Jack Daniels. We're not dumping 3,000 barrels a day or whatever it is, right? So it doesn't all come out in the wash. Like, we have to be really careful. And we're constantly tasting and blending and proofing. And you're not supposed to swirl because it brings the ethanol up and it mutes everything you're supposed to be smelling. But I don't even notice the ethanol anymore, which may be a bad thing. I don't know. But as a doctor, I would say it's probably not a great thing, but it's a job hazard. So anyway, that's what I do. But so you'll notice, obviously, big bourbon nose, and we try to split hairs over what do you smell in bourbon, but mostly with bourbon. And I'll tell you, as a super sniffer, bourbon smells like bourbon. You know what I mean? I mean, that bourbon note, it is what it is. And it's a combination of things that you try to dissect out. But you'll notice, that if you drink a lot of bourbon, you'll be like, okay, this is probably not a wheated bourbon. Okay. So what you're going to smell is you're going to smell the rye. And so the rye is coming through as like some spicy notes. And then you're going to get mature wood. And then you get the things, that you're accustomed to in almost every bourbon, right? You've got, brown sugar and, some vanilla and, so it's the classic bourbon profile, but smells a little more spicy, a little more rye forward, and most importantly, not angular on the oak. So not young oak, but mature oak. And this one, we used to really like punch the rye through. So the one I have today is even definitely more rye forward than the one you have.
Yeah.
And then, mouthfeel, again, super important. It can't be flat. Like, it's got to be alive on your palate.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like you decide how hot do you want this to be. And you can make it as smooth as you want. But we want the whiskey character to be there. So we try to balance out just, the creamy mouthfeel with enough heat that, you recognize it as bourbon. And then I love a spicy finish and I love a long finish. And, those are signature things we strive for. If we don't have that, then it's a failure for us, because that's super important. I want a big finish, and I want it to be, nice but long.
Yes, no, this is good. And I can definitely tell it's high rye bourbon, which is my type of bourbon. I love rye. Yes.
The mouthfeel it's perfect too. It's not a thin, it's not overly thick mouthfeel. It's like just the perfect consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for this is right where we want this product to be. And it's great that you have the 105 because, I feel like there are niches you have to fill with your products, or that you should figure out how to fill. And so for us, like, this is what, almost everyone should be drinking. And then from there, there's a reason why for every other product that we have, which we can get into. But this is 86 proof. It's 86 because that's where it has to be for the American palate right now. If you go less than 86, you really start to notice a thinness. Immediately, like shockingly quick. By the time you're at 84, it's like you're like, whoa, that's a big change. And then as you go up, I feel like it gets better till you get to about 92, and then it starts getting kind of hot until you get to 105. And magically at 105, just, for our mash bill, the way it works, at 105, magic happens. And so 105 is that's my favorite proof to drink it at. But for the average American consumer, you can't just put 105 proof bourbon out there. And plus the government really takes it out of your hide on excise taxes. So the higher the proof, the more the excise tax. So you've got to keep cranking the bottle cost up. So
interesting.
That's why the 105 costs more than the 86.
Yeah, I just to touch on what you said about, you can make it as smooth as you want. I feel like when we originally started drinking whiskey, it was like we sought out the smooth ones, and it was almost, we look back now and it's like we didn't even know what we were talking about, because it's like, oh yeah, that's really smooth. But with smoothness, sometimes I feel like you lose flavor and you lose something standing out. So the spiciness just, stays around just in the mouth. It's not like it spices down or anything. Yeah, it's very good.
It was very good.
No, and that you're absolutely correct. And that's the natural progression, as you, learn to drink, I guess, it's like you want to start with things that are more approachable. And that's why, the best-selling volume products in the US are, really approachable whiskeys. And, they're nice, easy to drink. They taste good. They're not super complex. But then if you take interest in it or start paying attention, then you figure out that there's maybe more out there. And so, and as you try, bigger whiskeys, they get better. Right. And, American palate, is also not, it's not finite or fixed, like it's evolving too. And, just when you think you know what you're doing, then a new generation of legal drinking age people reach critical mass as consumers, and they want something totally different.
Yeah.
Right now in the industry, it's honestly, people are struggling a little bit to figure out what the 21 to 25-year-olds, what are they into? Because they're very different than even the millennials. The millennial generation was pretty easy to figure out, I felt like, but the Zoomers, or the post millennial generation, if you just kind of pay attention to the industry, you'll see people are struggling to figure out what they want to drink.
Interesting.
I've not thought about it like that before.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to think about it that way, right? I really do love the business side of it. I love the whiskey, but the business side is so much fun, and especially when you win,
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I never. As far as the business part of it goes, I never thought about it as a moving target. You would think that you find, hey, this is really good, we really like this, and people like it, but people do evolve, people change, and then, like you said, you have a new age group that's entering, and I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
Think about like craft beer and wine right now, right? So, craft beer, when spirit started rising and bourbon started rising, the craft beer movement was it was exponential, and it was the coolest thing ever. And it was, growing, the volume was doubling year over year. And now all of a sudden AB InBev had to go buy all the breweries, and, so did Molson Coors, and, right. Cause it was like, they had FOMO, and they were getting their ass kicked by craft beer. And now, craft beer has been contracting for years, and it's kind of lost its soul in a way. And, what's next for craft beer?
Mhm.
Nobody knows, but if you see what consumers are drinking, it's, they're drinking, they're going kind of back to lighter beers, like session beers and, like Pilsner and lager style, like the juicy IPAs are doing well, but everything else is kind of struggling. And then if you look at wine, like the Zoomer generation right now, they're killing the wine industry. I don't know if you guys pay attention to that or not, but wine is just in massive decline, and there's major panic, in the industry because of that. So how do you get those consumers back?
Interesting.
But thank God I don't have a winery, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. What would you like us to move to next?
Well, I mean, you might as well just go to the 105, because that way you get apples to apples.
Yeah.
And now you get to see it at what I consider it's just it's perfect proof. And so you would think that at 105 it would drink hotter than the 86, but it honestly doesn't. I find it easier to drink at 105. I feel like the mouth feels better, the flavors all come up. And everything concentrates, but except the heat. To me, it doesn't drink hotter than the 86. It actually drinks a little easier, which is crazy. But at 104 and at 106, that's not the case. It's hot. It's hot at 104. It's hot at 106, but at 105, that's my favorite way to drink it.
Wow, that is interesting. That it's. You're right. You would think that would punch you a little bit more, but
it doesn't.
It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 86 is good, but I like this one better.
Yeah, definitely. This is this is the way I like to drink it. So it's but I'm also not a rookie, bourbon drinker either. So, I know what I want, and that's what I want.
Sure.
This feels like there's a lot more.
Yeah.
The 80s is really good, but then comparing it with this right after, this is.
And we always let our listeners know too that both of these we haven't had them in an old fashioned yet, but they definitely have the consistency that they'll stand out in the old fashioned, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, an old fashioned, it needs to be, if it's bourbon, it needs to be rye forward, right? So the more rye, the better.
Yeah.
And I like my old fashions dry too, My favorite cocktail is like two fingers of bourbon, and then you put like one more finger on top, and that's like my favorite cocktail.
I like that.
This is very good. It's really interesting to me how the 86 almost feels like it's got more of that spice and heat to it than this does, because you wouldn't think that being higher proof.
You wouldn't. Yeah, I think it's just like the viscosity and how there's like a magic. I don't know. We're have to figure out a word for this coefficient. There's a special coefficient of viscosity that comes together at that proof.
It's good. I like this.
You like this one better too? Yeah.
And I haven't tried the 105 before. I know because we've tried at some point. We have had regular,
the 86 at some point. Yeah.
Yes. This is good.
Yeah, very good. So we got Broncos and PX Sherry left, which
probably do the PX.
Okay.
PX.
Yeah. And so
that's very good.
I love the thought of cast finishing, and part of it comes from just being a Scotch guy, right? So traditionally Scotch was either single malt Scotch was either peated or not, and that was basically it. And then it was either in a sherry cask or a bourbon cask, right? And so most Scotch is finished in bourbon casks because they can get them. And, the world quit drinking sherry at some point. I think it was between World War I and World War II. And so they kind of, started running out of sherry barrels. But I really love Scotch that comes out of sherry butts. But they started experimenting a little bit with barrel finishes, 20 years ago. So it's natural that it would work for bourbon as well. But there's only so much you can do with your mash bill, right? And so if you want to if you look at it like art, kind of like I do, and you want to create more and make more and paint more pictures, you would like to have more colors to paint with. And so, one option is to blend whiskeys. So get barrels from, other distilleries or, Indiana whiskey or Kentucky whiskey or Tennessee whiskey and do some blending. And, I love to do that. We don't do a ton of blending anymore, but I still like to because it gives you, more colors to paint with. But cask finishing is a great way to do it. So when I first started thinking about it, as someone who likes to drink, I just instantly understood that port and bourbon went together like peanut butter and jelly. So we did a port cask finish first, and you can do, there are different styles of port, but tawny works best. So we do tawny cask finishes. Love that whiskey. I also love sherry. And so for people that drink sherry, if you don't drink sherry, you don't realize how diverse sherry is. If you do drink sherry, you know what I'm talking about. And so on the dry side, there's pheno sherries, and pheno sherries can be so dry that it's like a competition to ruin your palate. Like that's how dry. It's sort of like there's a competition to make the hoppiest IPA or the peatiest Islay style Scotch. There's a competition in sherry to make the driest sherry. And, I appreciate them, but the really dry ones are tough. And then it goes all the way over to cream sherries, which are so sweet that I always say a baby would drink it. That's how sweet it is. Okay. So in between there's a whole range. And so I love sherry, and I in my mind, thought that sherry and bourbon should go together. But what ended up happening was I ended up ruining a lot of bourbon because it mostly does not work until you get to towards the cream spectrum. And I didn't want to do, a cream sherry. I don't even know if there are cream sherry barrels. I think cream sherry is probably made in a plastic tote or something. I don't know. But PX is it's on the sweeter side of the sherry spectrum, and it's magic. And so what PX is short for Pedro Jimenez. Pedro Jimenez is a great varietal, it's a style of sherry from Spain, of course. And so these barrels come off of Solera. So Soleras are it's an interesting way to age a spirit. So rather than just put it in a barrel and then when it's ready, you take it out of the barrel. Solera, the barrels are all connected. And so you put the new make in on the top and you take the aged stuff off the bottom, right? So it all gets sort of mixed in, and the barrels are all of different age. And when these barrels are ready to be retired, that's when we get them. And so, a lot of these barrels are 100 years old. So it's cool. And so I love the PX finish. It's what's nice about it to me is that, again, it's bourbon, but there's more, right? And so the more are the sherry notes, and particularly the sherry wood notes. So the sherry wood becomes really, really prominent. And then, dark fruits, things like, fig, date, raisin, all that stuff's in there. A little bit of nuttiness, not as much as on the port, but a little bit of the nuttiness in there. And so, it's a complex whiskey, and it's very developed and deep, and I love that one. It's also the best whiskey I've ever had with a cigar. So if you're a cigar smoker, don't even waste your time. Just go straight to that and have that with your cigar, and you won't be disappointed. Some of the best whiskeys out there that you think would be great with a cigar don't work, and it's like our single barrel. We that we release, we always pick the barrels that concentrate butterscotch notes, and you would think it would just go so nice with the cigar. It does not. But this one is magic, and so
Yeah, I
going-
could see how it would complement it well.
yeah.
This
for
is,
sure.
I love this. This
Yeah.
is like, I could just sip this and
Yeah.
just keep going.
Well, I'm gonna have to compare some notes with the cigar. So there's the rest of my night.
Yeah.
No, this is very good. Like you said, there it is complex. There's a lot that gets to you there,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of flavors. But wow, that is very good.
Yeah, the thing I've noticed is, industry people like really love this one. The average consumer probably prefers the port cask finish more because
Really?
it's a little sweeter and it's really easy to figure out. But if you're in the industry or you're into cocktails, this is something that makes sense to your
Yeah.
palate, and so this is for you. If you're that person, this is for you.
Yeah, I'm for those that like a sweeter old fashioned, this tastes like it would be kind of perfect in it because it's not overly sweet, but there's just that
There's-
sweetness
there
that would
is
complement it perfect.
Like you mentioned fig and date, and I really get
Yeah.
those out of this.
Yeah, this would be make an amazing kind of just on the sweet side old fashioned for sure.
Yeah, that's a cocktail crusher too. That is amazing in an old fashioned. I love that in an old fashioned.
Yeah.
That's actually my go-to in an old fashioned is the PX.
Okay,
like it.
nice.
Mhm.
We've done when we've had some varieties from the same distillery before, we've done blind old fashioned ratings. I think we're gonna have to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, do it.
Yeah. I think this one, we'll know. I think
We'll
it's gonna,
know.
Yeah.
But still, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, to put them all in an old fashioned and.
Yeah. Line them up.
Mhm.
That's
That
very
one
good.
is very good
Is that your favorite so far?
so far.
So far.
I thought the 105. I really like the 105. This is just
Taking us on a journey where they're getting more like higher and higher ranked for Miranda.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what you think of the Broncos blend because we're kind of like you have to sort of pick your poison as to your order. But I felt like that triple threat right there was definitely the right way to go. But now we're kind of like we're getting out of the zone here a little bit because we're going back to a lower proof, and but I think it's the right order. So the Broncos blends are cool. I mean, mainly because of the partnership. And again, the people in the organization of the Denver Broncos they're some of the very best people you could ever hope to work with. And so we want to do as much as we can with them. And we love hanging out. And like I said, I'm going to the Super Bowl this weekend and hanging out with the Broncos. So, and
That's cool.
they know I'm also a Chiefs fan. So they always, it gets kind of testy sometimes, but I'm a Broncos fan too. So, whatever. So what we do is we do a special release once a year of bourbon, and we do two blends. We do an orange blend and a blue blend. We get two alumni, Broncos alumni, to come in because active players, again, because the NFL is, won't let them. So,
Right.
But anyway, so you have to be a veteran, and so we'll get two veterans. And we'll divide into two teams. One will go with Hans, our head distiller, who's this incredibly talented distiller, who just had a baby a couple days ago. He didn't have it, but his wife did. But he still counts.
Sure.
So congrats to Hans. But
congrats.
so Hans will take one, and then I'll take the other, and we'll work on two different blends, and then. We release them. We do one release per year. There's a QR code on the bottle, so you can scan it and vote for the one you like best if you try them both. And so we have this competition going, and because it's football, so there has to be competition.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just a lot of fun, and we only sell it here in Colorado, and we just try to hopefully end up with two kind of different blends. And each year, they're a little different. So this year, the orange blend, again on the nose, what I remember, I don't have that one right in front of me, but what I remember it is, very approachable whiskey, easy drinker, but it had a unique set of really nice little spicy notes, holiday spices and things like that we really liked. And versus the blue had more, it was more about like mouthfeel and like a creamy mouthfeel, and what we would call like a fruit forward, or more of I guess the right way to say it was well balanced bourbon. So the blue was like really well balanced with great mouthfeel, and the orange was skewed a little more to like the holiday spice side.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Yeah, we have a listener who's been tuning in every episode who lives in Denver and was telling us about the blue and orange. They're the first ones. It was like you gotta try to get Breckenridge and talk with them because they're a big fan of your whiskey.
Well, that's awesome.
So shout out
thank you to that fan. I really
I was gonna say I know him by his screen name on YouTube, Juke. So shout out to Juke.
Nice. Nice. And look, I mean, our business is still, it's one person at a time, one handshake at a time. And, if you like our whiskey and you're willing to support us, I just say thank you, because,
Very cool.
without you and all of you, this doesn't happen. And this is a really cool thing. I mean, it's a business, but it's special. And the people in this, the people that we work with, about 135 people, they're the best of the best, and we love our jobs. We love coming to work. What we do, I mean, it's rare to find what we have. It's a little Shangri-La, and so thank you, because without you, I'm just doctoring, so, which is great. But,
Sure. Yeah. Very cool. So can I ask who the veterans were, or the alumni, I guess, of Denver that did this year's? Or is this?
Yeah. So this year we had, gosh, I got to remember, I get my years right. So we had, Jake Plummer was the last 2 years. We had Carl Mecklenburg last year. And so this year we had Ed McCaffrey, and we had Big Al, offensive lineman. I'm at a loss for words.
I can't.
Big Al. I mean, we had Big Al.
Yeah.
So, and I was with McCaffrey, whose son is playing against the Chefs on Sunday. So good luck, CMC, and to Eddie and the whole family. So
very cool.
That's neat.
I imagine that's a lot of fun for them to be able to come into a distillery and learn some more about whiskey and everything.
So we always have fun, and they usually like bring their families, and we'll have some super fans come and some cheerleaders come, and we kind of make a whole day of it and eat great food and blend whiskey, and everyone goes home
awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and just to jump back to Juke, I know you said you're a Broncos and a Chiefs fan. He is just a Broncos fan, and the Chiefs' success is weighing on him a little bit. He's worried he's going to have to deal with it, much like everybody in the Patriots division had to deal with them when Tom Brady. Yeah. He's worried that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to be a problem for the next decade.
Yeah, I understand the apathy and and as I wasn't a Broncos fan until I moved out here. Sure. So, before that, I was only a Chiefs fan, and, we were pretty awful for a long time. So the futility it's a painful feeling, but future is bright for the Broncos, man. I'm very confident in that. It might take a year or two, but the future is bright.
Just out of curiosity, do you want them to draft a quarterback in the first round, or what are your thoughts there?
I mean, they're just they're 12th, the 12th pick. I mean, what are you going to do? I feel like, there's three great quarterbacks most likely. And then after that, I think it's a crapshoot.
Do you see him trading up?
Well, there's a lot of talk of that, but I mean, I don't know how they could possibly trade up, because they're already light on draft capital, and they don't have players to trade. Right. So the players that based off of where they're at in their contracts that, are tradable. Well, so you Josie Jewell you might be able to get something for him. You might be able to get something for Jerry Jeudy. But I mean, you've got one of the best players in the NFL on defense, Pat Surtain. Everybody, I mean, he's really the only like major draft capital you could trade. But God, you can't trade that guy. He's amazing. You've got to keep him.
I just
don't see how they do it.
Yeah, I read an article where they traded Surtain and their first rounder to the Bears for that number 1 pick, and but I don't see that happening. I just don't.
Look at how many like number 1 draft picks, or number 1, 2, or 3 that were quarterbacks that were a complete bust, right?
Yeah, most of them on the Bears.
Well, I mean, most of them, everywhere. I mean, Ryan Leaf, you never know. And I mean, Houston, like, man, they nailed it, and the Chiefs nailed it with Mahomes. But other than that, it's usually doesn't work out. So I don't think like the Broncos can't afford to make a big miss again.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think they're better off drafting towards the, best player available and positions that they need, and develop a quarterback, however, with hold it together with chewing gum and gauze pads, or whatever. And I think Sean Payton, if anyone can do that, I think he can, right? I mean, look what he did with Breeze, and I mean, you don't, and I mean, look how Brock Purdy's doing in the Shanahan system, and I'm a Big 12 guy, so I watched Brock Purdy play, his whole college career, and he was a good Big 12 quarterback, but he wasn't exceptional.
Right.
But he's good, and he's got the right skill set, and he's in the right program, and you put that all together, and he's great, right? He's playing phenomenal football, because he's in the right place, that fits his,
sure.
Round peg, round hole, right? It's like, so I think Sean Payton can do that, but I feel like Russell, his style of play, just for whatever reason, I don't think Sean Payton has the right system for him.
Sure.
I think his style of play, and God, it was so much fun watching Russell Wilson play for Pete Carroll. I mean, he was amazing in Seattle, and I love football. I love it, and plus Russell is he's genuinely one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
and and I mean, he's cool, but his wife's way cooler. And Sierra has a rum brand, by the way. I can't remember the name of it, but check it out. Yeah, and
to do that.
Yeah. I'm, as a Bears fan, we're constantly reminded that the Bears could have taken Patrick Mahomes, but instead drafted Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
We get to hear that a lot.
But I don't know. Would we have ruined him?
Yeah. I don't think Mahomes and the way Chicago was, I just don't think it would have worked either way.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. It's everything has to align.
Yep.
Unless you're Tom Brady, and then I think he'd be successful anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
as proven from Patriots to Bucks.
But Tom Brady, and when he played at Michigan, I mean, meh, right? Yeah. So the goat was like not a, he wasn't on everyone's radar coming out of college. So what's going to happen with the Bears?
I'm hoping we trade that first round pick.
Agreed.
Yeah.
There's so much talk about Caleb Williams right now, and I don't want us to give up on Fields. Like, if we utilize Fields the way I feel like we need to, I feel like we have a great quarterback. We're just not.
I mean, there's talks at Washington, who just hired Cliff Kingsbury as their OC, that even to move from 2 to 1, that they would give up 3 first rounders. I say, why not take that?
Oh, holy shit. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, draft Marvin Harrison. He played with DJ Moore. I mean, they grew up together.
Yeah.
And DJ Moore plus Marvin Harrison, Cole Kmet he does well, even though nobody seems to like him. I think that gives Fields the chance to move the ball down the field. And at that point, he has one more year to show like you're the guy.
Yeah.
If not, then they can reevaluate. That's
agree.
what I hope happens.
Yeah.
I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will change the field like Tyreek Hill did, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I agree completely with that.
All right. Well, we appreciate you running us through these tastings.
Yes.
You got a couple more questions here. Just
All right.
what can people expect when they planning a trip to the distillery? Because as far as different tours and tastings, it looked like there were a couple different options as well as dining, which I looked at the menu and I was hungry right away. It looked like it was amazing food.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, the distillery is a destination for sure. You have to dine for sure. You know, you should try to get dinner, but it fills up and it's booked out. So you got to plan ahead and you got to have a reservation. So make sure you do that, or we probably won't be able to get you in. But Chef Robbie Reyes, tremendous chef. The service is phenomenal. You know, we really pride ourselves on that. And our goal is to blow you away when you're there. So you remember the distillery, and after you leave, you talk about it and hopefully, support us. So we want to blow you away with the experience there. So restaurant is, it's a must. If you can't get in for dinner, you've got to do the happy hour. The dinner is an incredible experience, which you have to do. But personally, I like the happy hour just because of the food selection. And it starts at 2:00. It goes from 2 to 5. And it's like it's not as elegant of cuisine, but it's solid. And so I love the happy hour. So if you can't get dinner, do happy hour. If you want to nerd out or spend some money, there are a few experiences that are worth it. One is if you can book a chocolate and spirits flight, which will change your life. It will blow you away. So I've worked with these chocolatiers for years. We traded, so I gave them all my booze. They gave me all their chocolates. These are chocolatiers from all across the world. And we have it's a 5 spirit, 5 chocolate lineup. It'll blow you away. So not just flavor, but texture, mouthfeel, crunch, crackle, pop, all of it. It'll blow you away. I recommend that. Anytime I have VIP guests in, I always try to have them experience that. You can also do a flight and 5 bites from chef. He will knock you out. You'll be having things like A5 Wagyu and caviar and things like that with your spirits. It's incredible. And then we do a whiskey blending lab as well. You get 3 hours with one of our distillers. They will run you through the whole process. So how we think about whiskey, how we look at it, how we nose it and taste it, and how we think about and execute blending. And so you will get usually 4 very different whiskeys, whiskeys of different age, maybe different mash bills. Maybe we'll throw in a barrel from Indiana or Kentucky or something like that. And we will teach you how to blend whiskey. You will blend your own whiskey. You take notes. And so after you're done, then our distillers will blend you up with your recipe, a bottle or 2 for you to take, or if you want more, they'll make more for you and you can pick it up the next day. But you don't get to do that, right? I mean, you can't really go to distilleries and they aren't willing to show you how they do it or take the time to do it. Because it's a huge pain in the ass to do this, right? As you can imagine, pull a distiller out for 3 hours and, have a room exclusively for a few people and set it up. But it's super cool. So I would recommend that experience as well. And if you can't, and you just want to stop in, you can just stop in and do a free tasting, or you can, we can upsell you to a bigger tasting or whatever. But we can make it happen. Restaurants closed on Mondays, so please don't show up on Monday expecting to eat.
Good to know.
That's awesome. You guys have
we don't open until 2, so we don't do lunch.
Sounds like I don't know if it'll work this year, but next year maybe Colorado.
You got a guy. So when you guys are ready to come out, let us know. And
absolutely, we've got to get out there. I for sure will be out there in the Denver area at some point within the next year for work, so we can make an extended trip of it.
There you go.
Yes,
let's do it.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So, is there anything else that maybe we didn't ask, or anything else you want to share?
Oh gosh. Wow.
Loaded question,
It is.
You know, I think, you know, I can talk about our whole portfolio and our whiskeys all day long, but really, I mean, to experience it, you should come. I just, you know, I just can't emphasize enough how cool of an experience it is to come to Breckenridge and stay here for a good couple of days or so. And there's so much to do, you know, winter or summer, you know, plan your activities, and it's just such a special place. And please come to Breckenridge and experience it. You'll be blown away. You know, and spend a little time at the distillery. But you know, hopefully you'll leave as an evangelist, you know, not just a patron. It's you know, it's a cool thing to see. And
Sure.
you know, I can't emphasize enough just how great the culture is in the company and how great the people are. And I mean, we're really a big dysfunctional family. And I mean, you'll see the pride, you know, in everything at the distillery, for everybody, in every little thing you see. And hopefully you see the it with everything.
Yeah.
And the it is like, it's hard to describe, but you feel it when you go to a place that has the it, you just know it, right?
Mhm.
You know, the floor mats are clean and you're instantly greeted and you get eye contact and a smile and genuine conversation and you just have fun. So that's what we're about. And then when you go home and you find a bottle of Breckenridge, you know, bourbon at your local liquor store, you can drink it and remember your time at Breckenridge.
Yeah.
And just kind of slip back and be like, take your blood pressure down a little bit.
Sure. Very cool.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
every time we do one of these, that like the information is great, which your information was just amazing. Your background, everything was amazing. It seems like when we have ones that really stand out, which this one is going to, my parents book a trip. So
They do.
so you can expect to see my
That's
parents
not a lie.
in Breckenridge as well. So,
Hey man, always down for hanging with mom and dad.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
I just have a feeling
Yep,
that
they're like,
they're gonna
we're
let us
going
know,
back
like,
to Breckenridge.
yep, we're going to
Yep.
Breckenridge. We haven't been in a long time, and we're gonna go and visit the distillery. So
I
I'm
yeah, I
counting
was
on
thinking the same thing.
Were
You
ya?
just spoke the words that were in my head.
well, thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
I
thank
encourage
you.
everybody, if you can't make it to the distillery, go find the whiskey, because it's I know it's in a lot of places and you won't regret it. What was
No.
your final answer on your favorite?
The PX.
The PX.
Oh my gosh,
Nice.
that was so good. It was like I don't know. That's a favorite for me.
I'm really tied between that and the 105
The
proof.
105.
Yeah.
The 105 is my second.
Second. Okay.
Close second.
Yeah, they're
Thank
two
you
of
so
my
much.
favorites for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah.
good
You guys should
stuff.
try the rum cask sometime.
Oh,
Too.
Okay.
yes.
That one's awesome. So we make the rum, and then
Mhm.
so you know, we get to, when we do a spiced rum, and then we age the whiskey in the rum barrels, and so it's got the spiced rum notes, which are very flavorful. So there's a lot going
Okay.
on in there, and it actually drinks like a cocktail. So you could just have yourself. It's a neat glass of whiskey, but it's kind of a cocktail, but you're not getting all the carbohydrates. So
Mhm.
you get the best of both worlds.
Yes.
When we were in Colorado, did we get that from my dad? We got him a Breckenridge thing.
Madeira.
Oh, we got him Madeira.
Oh, Madeira. God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
That fucking
Yeah.
whiskey. Sorry, pardon my French. That was such a pain. If you can find the Madeira out there, buy it, because I'm not making any more of it.
He's got
my
a
God,
bottle.
it's so hard to make that whiskey, which we can talk about another time. I could do a whole podcast on complaining about how hard it is to do a Madeira finish on a bourbon.
Oh, anytime you want to come
Mhm.
back, you're always welcome. We'll
Yes,
talk.
absolutely.
We'll talk whiskey. We'll talk
Do that in the next
Broncos
one.
and Chiefs if you want.
Perfect.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your
Yes,
time.
thank you. This has been great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much to Bryan Nolt of Breckenridge Distillery. That was amazing. He
No,
had,
it really was.
had a lot of good information.
Yes, absolutely. I have to ask you,
Yeah.
having obviously this is a later release
Mhm.
of the interview, and having gone through the tasting of the 4 that we were lucky to get sent to us
Yes.
and go through and taste with Bryan Nolt. Which of those 4, between the bourbon, the high proof, the it was team orange
Yes.
for the Broncos.
Orange. Yep. They
The
have
Broncos
the blue and they
team
have the
orange, yes.
orange. We had the team orange.
Yes. And then the PX Sherry.
Oh man, that's tough because for me it's really between the PX Sherry and the high proof. The high proof
Mhm.
was really impressive because it
was.
was complex, and based off tasting the 86, then you
Mhm.
think jumping to 105, you're like, oh man, this is going to have a lot more heat, but it didn't.
No.
And it was crazy.
It was I did. I think I'm in the same boat with
Yeah.
you. The PX, I think that is just such a
That
good
was phenomenal too.
such a good sipper
Yeah.
on its own. And then that, I guess all of them
Yeah.
are a good sipper on their own.
That's
and even
true.
the high proof I would sip on its own. But they were good. I'm in between that. I
Yeah.
think the PX Sherry, just because this is probably one of my favorite bourbons finished in
Mhm.
PX Sherry.
Yeah.
That's like a very popular finish. I
Mhm.
feel like, especially right now, like they're
Yeah.
popping up all over.
Oh yeah.
People must have started, those barrels must have become available all at the same time, and all these different distilleries invested in them and started,
Mhm.
Finishing their bourbon and whiskeys in the PX Sherry. And I feel like we're just starting to see all these PX Sherry finishes pop up.
Yeah, well, and some of them are like 100 years old, 100-year-old barrels. So,
Mhm.
so it makes sense that maybe they're just starting to become available. But I have not. Brian did say that the PX Sherry matched perfectly with the cigar. I have not
Mhm.
had an opportunity to test that yet, but don't worry, I'm going to.
I know you are. And speaking of the PX Sherry,
Yeah.
and more so time management, this really comes down to time management, because
Me
you
wondering where
can't.
you're going with
I
this.
know you are. Photos. I do our photos when I'm
Yeah.
taking photos of the whiskey bottles, like to, you had it up at the start of this podcast. I wouldn't say lovely photo I took, but the photo I took.
I thought it was lovely.
I thought
mean,
it turned
look at
out
that.
cool.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
look at that. But you can't. I can't. I guess it's me. I can't take a photo of a bottle that's almost gone.
Right.
And we did our Super Bowl episode of the show where
Yeah.
we brought in all these cocktail recipes, and I made them Super Bowl themed for everybody. And this was the week that we interviewed Bryan Nolt, so we had tried these Breckenridge whiskeys,
Right.
and I used a couple of them in some of the recipes. Well, the PX Sherry, it was the Chief Sour,
Yes.
a twist on
Just a whiskey
a
sour.
whiskey sour.
Yeah.
It was a little twist, but I made it the Chief Sour, or a Swifty Sour if you weren't a football fan, but you're a Taylor Swift fan.
Which Brian would have appreciated, because even though he's a Broncos fan, he was a Chiefs fan first. That's a complicated relationship.
Very complex. Very complex. Same division there. And
yes. Yeah.
just but we watched the Super Bowl with my parents, doing those cocktails. That got a lot of feedback, that Chiefs Sour, because it was the Breckenridge bourbon in the PX Sherry finish. And then, your lemon juice and everything like that. So anyway,
we went through some of the PX Sherry.
We did during the Super Bowl, because that was what we watched it with my parents. My mom wanted to try that drink.
Yes.
So many of those drinks were made, and the bottle no longer looked like how I wanted to take a photo of the bottle. So time management, to circle back to the beginning here, I need to take my photos before, because we went out. I don't regret buying a second bottle.
No.
But we went out and bought another bottle of that PX Sherry for that photo, because I could not take a photo of it half or more gone.
Now something else, speaking of buying bottles, I want to get my hands on the port finish, because since we recorded with Brian, even since then, the port finish went to the World Whiskey Awards and won the best finished bourbon in the world. So I got to try it. I mean, we have to try it. It won the best. It's good. I mean, the PX Sherry is good. The port must be another step up.
All of them are good. And let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about what makes this whiskey unique.
Yeah.
Not only Oh, what?
Well, I was just gonna say one of the things that really jumped out at me is Brian said that the water,
Yes.
using the Breckenridge water,
You
was
are taking the words out of my mouth.
sorry.
Go ahead.
He said it was an incredibly unfair advantage, and I just thought that was really interesting.
Well, it is like think about like water. People don't think about like there's a lot to water. There's minerals in your water. There's when you're getting it right from their source, like they're getting it. No other water has that composition except for right there.
Yeah.
And that really impacts the whiskey.
Yeah.
And another thing that impacts their whiskey is their elevation. I mean, it's all different. The climate, the environment, it's all different there. So
Yeah.
they do have it's not like it's not a gimmick where you like how different regions that's not gimmicky. That's like legitimate.
Yeah.
Your environment, your water, your resources that you're using all impact
for sure
how the whiskey is made. So
for sure.
We're definitely gonna have to hunt down a bottle of that.
Yes, I agree.
Port finished and port. I mean, before whiskey, there was port for us.
That's true.
We loved sipping port around a fire pit in the summer, in the fall.
And a port finished whiskey.
I mean, there was always whiskey, but I would say me especially.
Before you were big into whiskey.
You are not this in.
I was not.
You're a whiskey lover.
Yeah. Whiskey was my drink. I just wasn't as invested or enthusiastic about it, I guess.
Yes.
We got to try the rum as well. The rum finished because it's finished in their own rum casks.
Yes.
I got to try that. I believe he said that's like a cocktail on its own because it's like it's a whiskey drink, but with the rum flavors, it's a spiced rum, so that jumps through. And then, I mean, make sure you keep following us because we are going to review the two clans that they were nice enough to send to us. Just amazing.
That was such a treat.
Amazing
to have the two clans sent. We have not tried it yet. It's coming up. We have a couple other whiskeys scheduled, and then that will be its own episode because I am so excited to try that. That is, you can only get it at the distillery.
And they're running out.
And they're running out. When we recorded our interview with Brian, he said there was maybe 3 weeks left at the distillery of their supply. So the fact that we got a bottle is awesome, and I'm excited to try it.
Now, they are going to come out with some different variations he talked about because the two clans is their dark arts blended with Scotch, and they're going to do different like spin-offs of like a smokier one or one that has more of this or that. So there will be some other stuff similar to it, but there won't be it. And that's his favorite drinker, he said. So
he's got to have some stashed away somewhere.
Probably.
Maybe. No,
barrel.
He's not a whiskey hoarder, though.
That's true.
He shared a $20,000 bottle of whiskey with his team to train their palates.
I know. Brian,
$20,000 bottle of Scotch. Let me correct myself.
Anytime you would like to help us train our palates, we are down.
Yes.
We can be great team members.
Can't even fathom. I've never seen a $20,000 bottle of anything.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Let alone thought about buying it or drinking it. Like I would, if we bought that, I would be afraid to drink it. Like I would be like just taking little tiny sips. Like let's make this last for a while. But no, I agree. Yeah, whiskey is meant to be drunk.
To be drunk. Drank.
Whiskey is meant to be drank.
Now you're making me second guess myself. Anyway, moving on.
Whiskey, yeah.
It's meant to be enjoyed and shared.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Do you have anything else to add? This was a great one. We hope to obviously make it up to Breckenridge soon, but if you're around the area, make sure you go there. And if you're not, likely you can find some Breckenridge products at your liquor store, grocery store, or whatever. Go check it out. It's definitely worth it. It's very affordable, very good priced. So yeah, go check it out. We like 105, the high proof, or the PX Sherry. Those are some recommendations from us, but it's all good. It is, absolutely. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add? No. All right. My whiskey is about to be gone. I'm gonna go have. I need to experiment with the cigar and the PX Sherry. We gotta see if he was right there. So, yes. Going once, going twice. Sold.